Hello, everyone, and welcome to Love and Law. My name is Virginia Warren. I'm a lawyer and conflict alchemist and co-founder of the group called Lawyers for Love. At Lawyers for Love, we see that the legal system in its present form uses fear to solve problems. Lawyers for Love say to solve a problem, you need a higher level of consciousness than that which created it. We believe that level of consciousness is based in love. In these live broadcasts, we're showcasing amazing lawyers globally who are bringing their own style, their own particular style of love into legal practice. Now, for anyone that's watching, please feel free to post any questions during the broadcast and we will endeavour to answer them for you. But today, it gives me great pleasure to introduce the beautiful Pepe Kish. She's a family lawyer from Canberra, Australia, who aspires to create positive change in the lives of her clients. Pepe is the principal lawyer at Balance Family Law. I love that name, Balance Family Law. She was a reluctant lawyer at first. She tried to escape a few times, which I can't wait to hear about, with forays into the world of performance, social work in child protection, and unexpected motherhood earlier than she expected. Family law beckoned her back and she found an area where she was able to practice and be herself and create a positive change in the lives of her clients and the practice of family law. Pepe works in, and I will agree with this, arguably the most human area of law. She found that the emphasis on what the law traditionally says in traditions and inflexible procedures was not helping her clients at all. With this in mind, she's come to learn that a warmer, more flexible and kinder approach is far more helpful and effective in assisting clients move on and thrive after their separation. She is kind, quite informal and positive in her interactions. From writing in friendly, plain language, always talking on the phone with a smile, it really does make a difference. And Pepe says it's important to be consistently and authentically kind to everyone. Token kindness is a thing. But it doesn't quite work that way. Pepe lives her values and this extends to what she wears and eats. She's a happy herbivore, aka vegan, and animal activist. That's beautiful. She's a mum to two lovely girls, 13 and 8, and we're crazy about dancing. Yes, she's a dance mum. So welcome, Pepe. I just love this idea of bringing kindness in to legal practice. And whilst kindness is easy to say, you're so right. Token kindness is a thing. But let's go back a little bit. How did you get yourself into law?
Okay, so really it's not that exciting. My parents said I had to do law and, I wanted to please them and be a good girl. And, when I finished uni, if you did well enough, if you were good at math, you went off and did medicine, or if you were good at English and humanities, you go off and do law. So I thought I'll do that and then I'll get my 5 years and then I'll go and do what I really want to do after that. So my parents were quite traditional and they didn't like the idea of me being an actress without having a really good fallback position first. So I did the degree with the view of, as soon as I was graduated, to go and pursue my dream of being an actor. But other things, that did happen actually. But what happened before that is I happened to see an ad in a newspaper looking for an associate to a magistrate in the children's court. And I thought, oh, you know what? I'd love to work in the children's court, because at that time I just was really drawn to children's issues, youth justice as well. And so I just put in my resume. I was only, I think, end of third year, maybe beginning fourth year. Didn't think I had a chance, but I had a lot of volunteer work under my belt already, and they brought me in for an interview and I got the job with the Children's Court Magistrate.
Wow. Yeah. That must have been amazing work. What kind of work were you doing there?
So the Children's Court had the care jurisdiction, which is care and protection matters, so where children are at risk of harm and the statutory agency needs to intervene. And then, of course, there's youth justice, so the criminal justice system for people under the age of 18. So there were those two areas that I was really immersed in. And I put my hand up very quickly when an opportunity came up to tutor the kids at the youth detention centre. So that was great. I loved it. I'd go out there every week and tutor almost always the boys in a variety of things, math, English, Spanish, because I was doing Spanish. And it was really nice. It was really nice to work with those kids who were great, you know. I won't talk to you about some of the security issues. Like when we finished our session, the intercoms were broken, so we'd have to just jump wildly in front of them.
Technology.
Yeah.
Love it.
To get someone to come. Then the care jurisdiction, I got to know the lawyers and the caseworkers that would come really regularly. And they sort of said, do you want to come and work with us when you finished your associateship? And I said, yeah. And that's where I went, only for 6 months because I got leave without pay and went and started acting school. And never thought I'd come back, but I met my husband and got pregnant, not necessarily in that order. And so I came back to my stable government job to pay the bills, really, while keeping my foot in Sydney and hoping the next big break was on the horizon. But that type of work just really called to me. And so I ended up in casework. So I originally started off as a solicitor, and then I ended up in case management, frontline case management, which was an eye-opening experience. I loved it. I loved working with those families, and I loved trying to engage the most disengaged and sort of broken families, really. So, and that became my thing. They'd give me the too hard basket cases, and I would try and get them back on track. So
that's obviously your calling then. And so you've spent that sort of time, because you might, it's not that easy to engage. Often as lawyers, we're there just to get the facts and just deal with them, process people through the system. But when you have really a heart, you can't help yourself and you get drawn in and you want to know the people, don't you?
Absolutely. And the key really is listening, I think, Virginia. I think we spend so much time thinking about what we have to say to them, what our obligations are in terms of what we have to communicate. And there's also a bit of ego with lawyers, come on, let's admit it. We want to sound good and sound smart and like we know our shit. So I think what I've become comfortable with, particularly over the years, is being comfortable with being silent and just listening and really hearing their story. And then once you've heard it, you can authentically and honestly respond and often get it right because you've really thought about it and absorbed their story.
Yeah, that's it. You've heard the person behind what is really happening to them. Often we just want to get down some facts and then just move it through.
Absolutely.
And there is that element of, I suppose lawyers aren't trained in how to engage either, because some of these areas, particularly the ones that you've worked in with children, they're really heart-wrenching. And then there's the fear that you'll go down with the ship as well, that you just get drawn right into it rather than keeping yourself separated. So there's a little bit of that element that goes on as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And often the law says certain things are irrelevant. Like I had an old boss, and if you talk about the emotional side of things or tried to explore the why, the underlying reasons behind why someone was separating, I'd get that it's irrelevant. We're only interested in facts. Whereas I sort of flipped that. I'm like, no, actually, I want to see all the colours. I don't just want the black and the white. I want to see the full spectrum of the rainbow and really understand this issue from all aspects, the emotional side of things, not just the facts.
That's it. And that's what I've said before, is we're trained left brain thinking and to deal with half a problem. So that's half a human dealing with half a problem. And how does that solve a relationship issue? Or how does it do anything for human relationship? And particularly law, it governs the human relationship. So if we're taking the emotion out of it, we're taking part of the relationship out of it.
Absolutely.
And we're not serving people at all. And that's why I think people are disgruntled with lawyers, because we can't hear them. And then we charge the money for that privilege. And we haven't really solved anything. We've moved them through a process where I know most people say they are not being heard.
Yeah.
And it's such a thing. And I'm not certain why we're trained to do that. I have no idea. And I think that's why many family lawyers particularly find it a really difficult job when they're not able to really hear a client.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that I like to work on specifically with clients is from the beginning, not only hearing their story, but sort of saying to them, okay, there's another person's story that we have to hear as well. That's your partner or your ex. We need to hear that story. So let's think about, when we're talking through this first time we're meeting, you know, what their perspective might be. And it's important that we give them a chance to express that as well before we start making assessments as to how this matter should progress, what the outcomes might be. Because I'm on half the facts or half the situation.
Because that is so beautiful. So many people don't approach their practice like that. And it is the me versus you in the system, and with the win-lose model. And that zero-sum game doesn't work in life, because we are humans and we've got to move forward in relationship to the children and everybody else in the relationship. And I see it personally as an opportunity for people to say, okay, why did I get into this relationship? Why am I arguing with this person? What happened? Why was I attracted to them in the first instance? I mean, there's all of that goes on. And I think lawyers have the best opportunity to help people actually move through some of their own stuff. And and to know that everyone's perspective is true for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. And helping my clients understand that you might have your truth, but so does your other person. And I often say you don't have to understand them. You just have to accept that they have a different perspective. And how do we work through that?
Yeah, their perspective is true for them in all circumstances. And so that's where it's beautiful when we can have then compassion for the other person in the relationship. And this doesn't mean even family law. It could be contract law or any other litigation of any description. The other person is seeing something you're not seeing. I'm seeing black, you're seeing blue, and that's the end of it. So if we can just accept that, and then say, okay, right, we're both seeing different pictures. Then I like to look at a client's point of view from, okay, why are you seeing blue and they're seeing black? Why? And when we can then shift, and look, not a lot of people can shift into their partner or the other person's shoes and see it very well. But even the idea of having compassion that, I see that they're seeing it a different way. And then you can move forward a little bit more easily. And it's beautiful if the lawyer on the other side is able to show their client the same thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that sometimes doesn't happen.
No, it's actually one of my goals, because something that I've noticed, there's a lot of movement behind doing law differently. Okay. And, when I started out with Balance just almost 2 years ago, wow, that's come up quick. So 2 years next month, there was this emphasis on how we were different, how we could distinguish ourselves from the competition. Yeah. And in family law at the moment, you can only act for one party. And how is it really serving my clients if I'm over there on an island doing things in this wonderful, unique way, but everyone else, or the large majority of people, are doing things differently? I can't really create impact or change, not just for that client, but on a broader scale, if I've got other people doing things in a way that is, in opposition to how I'm doing things. So by trying to, educate, share, and bring in people, other practitioners, to the way that we work, in the hope that more of us can work in this more team-based, collaborative approach, is going to be the way to move forward and create impact. So I have said we've got to be different, but we've got to be different together. There's no, it shouldn't be competition. It always should be collaboration over competition. There's plenty of work to go around.
That's right. I think I've trained in collaborative law. I don't know whether you have. Have you done that as well? Yeah, that's it. So, and I find that it's very difficult to find another genuinely collaborative lawyer. It's unfortunate, but that is just the way it seems to be. But when I'm faced with an opposition that is driving the matter by costs, and that's often the case, issuing unnecessary applications and things like this, I work with my own client and say, your life is your reaction to it. You are in this system for a reason. I've personally just been through it. as a client in the family law system. Now, I'm a lawyer and I understand the system, but I was up against a litigant, a lawyer who was a commercial litigant, let's put it that way. And it was cost-driven, and it amazed me how that system was run, but it was there for my benefit so that I could see, wow, this is what's really happening in the system. And then it was all about my reaction to it and what I could learn about myself. So I was very fortunate then to be able to take my own clients through that process and say, all right, so we have this, we're looking at this on the other side, they're not going to budge. They're going to fight tooth and nail. Excellent. This is about your reaction to life now. What is really important to you? And when we can see all of this going on, we've got a bigger picture about who we are in life and how we're, what our responses are. And if they're negative, how we can improve that, because it's just a life journey.
Absolutely, Virginia. Absolutely. Yeah. And, there's this fight fire with fire kind of mentality sometimes. And I really have to pull back with my clients and say, okay, what happens if you've got fire and fire? You have bushfires and, an inferno, a raging inferno. We've got to meet that fire with something different, with water. Yeah. And, there's, for a client that's resistant to that, I always say, look, there's also strategy in that. So it can look like the other side is behaving in a very disproportionate way if we're always responding with something that is symbolic of water. So with time, I find, and sometimes not at all, sometimes some clients just get it, it does make a difference. It just, even with their mindset set and where they're at, they feel so much more comfortable and in control of the process, and not like it's been dictated to them by the other side, however the other side is approaching it.
You are so right about that, because it is about the control, and people feel that they're out of control when they get into this legal system because it sucks them in. The only thing you have control over is your reaction to life. And when people can see that, oh, I see that I'm controlling my reaction, then I have greater control, rather than feeling, completely out of control, because you've got the lawyers taking the legal system, the mediator, the judge, everybody else is in there telling you how your life is going to look. And that is really disempowering. So to turn it around for a client and say, okay, this is the best challenge of your life. We're going in and you're going to see how you're going to react to this. It might hurt a little bit, but then we're going to see where those hurts come from. They come from deep within somewhere. And why is it hurting? Why is it hurting you? It doesn't need to. Let's see this as an opportunity for your growth. And it's just amazing. When your clients see it like that, they feel like they've come out a bigger person. They've upgraded. It's just like, whoa, I've been through the fire. I didn't get burned, actually. Yeah. Now, kind of, and some people think, if I got more property out of it, or I got more time with the children, that I won. Nobody wins. Nobody wins any of that. That's not a winning thing. It's how you've responded and how you can move through with dignity and grace. And find out who you are in this baptism of fire that is really vital.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But there's no magic solution, but the way you conduct yourself through that process can make the difference as to whether it's really arduous and painful and soul-destroying, or whether you view it, okay, this is a challenge, but we're going to work through it, and it might be a bit hard, it might be really hard, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel. We're moving in the right direction.
Yes, and the client, when they've felt that, look, I'm floundering, I don't know which way to turn, just to help them to turn inward. And I know that's a really weird thing to say, but to help them turn inward and say, you've got this. This is about you. It's not actually about the other person at all, ever. And when we can pull them back from that space, and rather than the old shame blame game, which happens in family law, we'll blame the other side. We feel better because it's their fault this all happened. It's no one's fault. No one's here to blame anybody. And if we got lawyers on board with that, a lawyer's job is even better, because you can see a client transform in front of you, and it's such a rewarding experience. You feel like you're of service rather than tearing a family apart. You might actually, when the clients come through the other end of that experience, they see it all for what it is, and they're actually grateful. Yeah. There's an element of gratitude about that I got something, I profited from this experience as well.
Yeah. And something that has been really heartwarming for us at Balance has been, we've been getting that type of feedback not just from the client, but from their ex,
Yes.
who have thanked us for the approach and for remaining, then they use the word, for being kind.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And so you talk a lot about kind. I want to hear your take on that because, kindness can be, as we say, we've got collaborative lawyers, people that are being kind, but what does that mean to you?
So for me, I have a little bit of an alter ego called the Kind Lawyer. It's a little bit quiet at the moment because I've been so busy with balance and everything that comes with running the business. But the Kind Lawyers were sort of born out of, just making that connection. It's all about connections. And the Kind Lawyer was also about my journey into veganism, but also about my journey as a family lawyer and making the connection between how our actions impact others and how I could, as a practitioner and as a person, create as much positive impact in the world. And not even the world, just in my little sphere. Let's not be over ambitious because, in my little sphere, let's just start there. And, it's about that connection. Being put out into the audience, into the universe, that's the word I was looking for. Put out into the universe positivity and it will come back to you. And over the last 2 years with Balance, we've really started seeing even some quite, lawyers who have what's it called? I've lost the word. A reputation for being quite aggressive and litigious. Even working with some lawyers like that and having a bit of a laugh and having a good outcome. Or with one particular case, the lawyer was absolutely delightful. I looked at the firm and I thought, here we go. And she looked at my website and she said, "Oh, you're smiling." She goes, "Does this mean this will be an easy matter, a happy matter?" And I said, "Yeah, it will be." And we just had a laugh. And now every time I speak with her, I just try and keep it positive and light. And we share a joke and things like that because it's just important to find that glimmer of light in whatever matter it is because it is there. And, if you can find that and work on that, it just makes the whole experience more less stressful. You're never going to have a matter.
I think it is the same for some lawyers, when you're going to face an opposition, if you like, because I don't really like that word opposition, but you get that, you can hear perhaps for that lady, she's getting ready for battle. It's irrespective. And she's looked at that, oh, thank goodness, someone's not going to fight me, and she can put down the armor. And why are we getting dressed for battle every day? Why are we doing that?
I think Jonathan, who is our business partner, we were talking about this just the other day. People get really stuck on that cycle. This is the way I've always done. We hear lawyers say to us, they'll call and go, "Really sorry, I've got to send one of those letters." And part of me kind of goes, "Oh, you don't ever have to send any letter like that." But they're saying that what that's saying is that this is the way I've done it. That's all I know. And, we have to go through this motion. And with Balance, we're like, no, you don't. We don't have to go through this. Why are we beholden and laying down to a system that clearly only creates conflict? Let's shake it up. It's just about finding the humanity in each and every case and thinking. It's simple for me. I say to my client, we might write a nice enough letter, but if at the end you're saying, if you don't this, we'll do this, we'll take you to court and threat, the whole positive vibe of the letter is gone. On very limited occasions, sometimes you have to make that thing, like if there's a power imbalance or if it's quite a, someone has gone and done something pretty awful and there has to be court intervention. But most of the time, it's not like that. So I think lawyers have to realise, no, you don't have to send that grenade. This is how we write. We write a letter so that if you're going to receive something like that, we say to our client, you look at it and go, oh, okay. So your reaction is not immediately, oh, I've got to get my armor ready. I've got to get my response. We don't want to encourage a defensive response. We want to encourage a response that is, okay, let's work together. So we always say, let's make this. This is a joint problem. Let's approach it together. This is everything that we have in common. This is all the great stuff we've been able to do. So let's focus on that to help us get through the challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know whether many lawyers know, but to receive that letter, a lawyer's letter is terrifying. I had a client come into me once and he said, and it was an inane letter from the other side, we act for and we want to settle this amicably and all those things. It was just it was the nice first letter, nice. And he said, you have no idea how terrifying it was to get that letter in the mail. And that was when it first occurred to me, wow, okay. And this was a nice letter. And to be on the receiving end of any lawyer's letter as a client it can be, really triggering because, of course, we know what buttons to push. And that is, it can, if the client's educated, it can be to their benefit, but it can also be, and it's not helpful for the lawyer, I don't think, to then have to deal with their client, think, why are we trying to, get all the edges, people feeling really edgy about this? Let's do it more, humanely. And I don't know how to send a letter without sending a letter. I suppose it's pick up the phone, talk to your client sometimes. I'm not really certain about all that because you still have to convey the information and none of it's pleasant really when you're trying to separate a long-term or any term relationship. But let's just think about being in the client's shoes.
And that can be it. It's acknowledging how the letter or the correspondence might make them feel. So what we do, particularly when there's a self-rep on the other side, we acknowledge straight away that, okay, you're getting something from a lawyer, or it feels, we'll encourage our client to write or communicate to, and we'll coach them to do that the other side directly. Where they don't want to, we'll do it, or where there has been some correspondence between the two of them directly and it hasn't worked as they'd wanted to, we acknowledge all those icky and those bad feelings straight away. And we really invite them to engage with us straight away. And one thing I've heard from other lawyers is they're like, oh, you've got to be really careful when you put yourself out there with the self-rep. They could, make a complaint against you. I'm like, well, knock on wood, in over 10 years as a family lawyer, I haven't had anything like that. And, often, as I said earlier, they thank you for approaching me as a human and acknowledging the pain that I was in and how it might make me feel.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been in that situation myself. And, people that are self-represented, they're often feeling on the back foot when they're coming across to another lawyer, and they might write a lot of correspondence, and you have having that compassion for that person that you think they either can't afford representation or they just don't want to have representation because of mental health issues. There's all sorts of things that go on there, and we've got to be so compassionate for those people as well and see where they're coming from. It's really interesting, and the most beautiful thing, I think, from what you're saying also, is that when we're feeling in this space, we get the feedback as well, and it feels really good to get good feedback rather than the people that complain about costs. And there's the standard things that lawyers get complaints about costs and their behaviour and things like that. But even if we do get a complaint from a client, let's have a look at that for ourselves as well. Why are we getting that complaint? What's happening? What are we doing? And sometimes people and that happens, but it's all being very open and honest with ourselves as well.
Absolutely.
Now I also want to talk about you're a dance mum, so tell me all about that. That's fun.
So I danced when I was younger. I never got to quite the levels of my older one, but I think it was a bit of living vicariously after I couldn't really find time to get back into performance myself. I started my now 13-year-old when she was 3 into dancing, and when she was 8, she started in a performance company, and she's now part of an elite acrobatic troupe and ballet, and she does everything. People go, what kind of dance does she do? I'm like, all of it. It's not cheap, but but they were named at a recent nationals. They were grand national champions, one of her troops. So it's just a really wonderful, it's so different to law. And it's just really lovely. There's costumes, there's colour, I love music. So You know, often I'll hear the music that they play for different songs, particularly the lyrical and contemporary, and I'll go and find it and then I'll listen to it over and over. And my girls will go, "Why are you listening to that music from Ms. Stedford?" And I'm like, "Oh, because it's lovely." Like, I just love it. I'm a creative at heart. And even though I'm not doing it myself at the moment, it's just being a part of it is really nice for me. I struggled during COVID when it was not happening and all the dance shut down.
Okay. Yeah, so it must be all back. But it's beautiful. You have this work-life balance. You can, balance family law is beautiful, but you do have the balance because you must, as a lawyer, I think, is really have another life to live.
Yeah, and another thing that I love doing is I'm very active with volunteering, and with both my girls, but particularly my older one, we like to go out to a couple of the local ones, almost an hour and a half away, but sanctuaries, and we help out, just sort of doing sort of farmyard type work. But I feel better about myself as well. I'm like, oh, I can build a fence, and we help with the sheep, with their hooves, and just cleaning out. Like, I actually get a lot of pleasure out of cleaning out chicken shit. I just think it's beautiful property. Yeah, away from technology. I'm doing it with my girls. It's just really lovely. So I always, where you can volunteer and you can be out, in the bush and beautiful and fresh air, away from technology, with your children and surrounded by really cute animals, There's no best way.
You became a vegan. Why? How?
Oh, so I just think I always loved animals so much. And then I actually initially went vegan for my health. So I had a lot of sort of digestion issues with my skin. And I thought, oh, it could be diet related. And I looked into it, and it certainly helped with my health and my fitness. And then I'd always loved animals. So when you start looking into veganism, you obviously hear about the ethical side of things. And so I looked into it and was just really appalled at the conditions that animals live in, the factory farm, which is 90% of the meat people have. So I mean, people might say, oh, it comes from an ethical farm. I'm like, yeah, but that's such a tiny, small proportion. For instance, I had no idea until 5-6 years ago that in order for eggs to be produced, they'd have to, get rid of the waste product, which is male chicks, and the usual way that they get rid of them is to grind them up. So it's the equivalent of putting a one-day-old baby chick into a macerator and a blender live. So it was just those type of things, and I thought, I don't want to contribute to that. I can be really healthy, have a clean, wholesome diet, and not harm anyone or anything. And it's better for the environment as well. So why not? My then 9-year-old, we watched a documentary called Cowspiracy, and she went vegan overnight and hasn't looked back. And then my husband joined me. I'd say he's more sort of whole foods, plant-based. He joined me a couple of years ago, and then he's probably been vegan about a year. And my youngest is vegetarian. She still loves her chocolate and going to parties and being able to eat the cake. So she's still 8. And it's for her, I mean, we don't have meat in the house, but it's a matter for her to make the decision to be vegan. She's vegetarian, and that's where we're at the moment. But it's creating.
It is about choice, isn't it? Yeah.
Creating less of an impact, and not contributing to any type of violence.
That's it. That's what I learned in yoga, ahimsa, non-violence, and what I could bring into legal practice. And that's where this journey started for me, was the idea of ahimsa. I'm thinking non-harm. I'm harming people by this continual separation. And my idea was that the philosophy of oneness. But even for you to say, you're doing your bit, that ripples out so widely, you have no idea. If you've just affected one person's life and made this a more pleasant process, and they learn something about themselves and they were able to grow through it, and then their children and those children's friends, their friends, everybody, it has such an amazing effect. We don't realize we don't have to go change the world on a large scale. Number one, we change ourselves. We shift how we are approaching our lives ourselves. Like, for you, becoming a vegan and being kind, that shift, that reflects back at you and you'll see it everywhere. So that's so beautiful. And this is what people think, oh, it's just too big, especially in the law. For other lawyers, it's all too big to change the system. So, but it's not. There are so many lawyers. I'm talking to them all the time now that are really taking a more of a loving-based approach to how they practice they have their day job. It's amazing.
Absolutely. And I think that the more of us are doing it, the more of us who can connect, I think we have a greater chance of creating that impact through, I think, education. And something that's really close to my heart is that, as you said earlier, it can be really difficult to find a genuinely collaborative lawyer. And believe me, there are so many faux collaborative lawyers out there, but often they're not that way because they're choosing to be. They just don't actually, that penny drop moment hasn't happened yet for them. And what I've created in Canberra with some wonderful other practitioners, one mostly lawyers, but there's also mental health practitioners in our little group, is we call it the Kindness Collective, actually. And our goal is really to educate and remove alternative from dispute resolution, so that ideally for me, my clients will come to me and say, I don't have to tell them about this out there, outside the box collaborative family law, that they're like, oh, that sounds really good, but why haven't I heard about it? Because when they say, why haven't I heard about it, that breeds some, particularly in a conservative town, and look, Canberra is a public servant town, and they may not like it if I say it, but at the end of the day, they're a conservative lot. They do what everyone else does. If other people have done it, and that's what our referrals word of mouth. But if my goal is for people to actually come to us and say, I want that because that's awesome, not us having to educate them. So hopefully as a group we will create more impact when we say, look, here's a whole group of us, there's 9 of us at the moment who do it in this way. We can help you, and and educating not only the community but other practitioners, other professionals. I always say other professionals, I call them sort of our first responders. You might talk to your real estate agent, your accountant, your financial planner. What they say to the client who is thinking about divorce plants a seed. It can either plant a seed that is an open, mindset where they're wanting to work together and they're thinking about goals and interests, or it can plant a seed of mistrust and, I better protect what is mine, focused on rights and positions. So educating other professionals is really integral to that. It's like, what words and things and actions, what can you say and do when the client first comes to you before they see a lawyer? It can even be the hairdresser to plant that right seed. So when they come to me, I'm not having to dig it up. Rather, I just add a bit of fertilizer and it's flourishing.
Yeah, there's plenty of fertilizer. And the funny thing is, yes, if you're supporting, if someone feels that they're going to come into the system supported, heard, held. I think that the fundamental things for a human, people want to be heard and held. Yeah. So if we can metaphorically hear and hold people as they go through this space, that is just awesome. It's an awesome experience from something that didn't seem so good to start with. That's a beautiful transition for a human, I think.
I think so.
Yeah. Well, it's been so beautiful speaking to you today, Pepe. I've really enjoyed this chat, and thank you for showing me how you're bringing kindness and the Kindness Collective, did you say? That's beautiful. Yeah. I love hearing all that. Now, if you want to know more about Pepe, her website is down below. And if you're a lawyer and you want to connect with us and tell us how you're bringing more love into the legal profession, you can contact us at www.lawyersforlove.love. And we would love to see you because we're bringing more love into this profession. So thanks so much, Pepe. And we'll speak again, no doubt.
Yes, looking forward to it. Bye, Virginia.
Okay, bye.